gold diggers using you for money. They don't like you, they don't care for you. If you're always struggling with money, you're always in survival mode, and therefore no room to think about intimacy. Stress is the #1 libido killer.
Dr. Tara is a leading sex and relationships expert on Celebs Go Dating. She's featured in Cosmopolitan and she has done a TED Talk. But today she is going to be speaking on her Discussions podcast all about libido, how to foster connection and novelty in long-term relationships, and even ethical non-monogamy.
Orgasms give me the best ROI. It takes me 5 minutes and then I'm in good mood all day. I just exude a much better energy. So, and I say this like I have no shame. Women are still looking for men that can somewhat provide. You can't technically die from not having sex.
Are there any things that really worry you a lot?
What worries me a lot is...
But before we get into the conversation, please don't forget to subscribe or leave a 5-star review. It really, really helps us keep bringing you guests that help you live a happier, healthier life. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tara, and you're listening to Her Discussions podcast.
Dr. Tara, our community sent in so many questions for you. I was hoping you'd be able to explain what is a sexologist and what led you to being a sexologist.
A sexologist is someone who studies, teaches, and work in the realm of human sexuality. And this can be work in any type and shape and form. So it can be a researcher of human sexuality. It can be someone that speaks on stages about human sexuality. It can be someone that works with clients one-on-one or with couples. It can be people that write books about human sexuality. So there's many different, I guess, modalities of communicating about human sexuality, but I tend to do all of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what led you to being a sexologist?
You know, it's quite like an interesting stumble upon, but I'm originally from Bangkok, Thailand. Have you been to Thailand before?
I have been to Thailand. Yeah, loved Thailand.
Oh, where did you go?
I did like 6 weeks. Bangkok, Koh Tao,
6 weeks in Thailand?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What's up north?
Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai, yeah. Koh Tao. Yeah, did a big old trip. Really loved Thailand.
I'm learning now that British people love Thailand.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many people going every year. But yeah, that's the environment that I grew up in. I actually grew up very religious. My parents were both extreme Buddhists. We would go to the temple, 3-4 times a week. And then I also went to an all-girls Catholic school growing up. I like telling that story because I want people to understand, like, where I come from and how if I'm able to get to the spot where I'm at now, anyone can, in terms of embracing your sexuality and being sexually liberated. So that's how I grew up. And then I moved to the United States. And that was sort of the first pivotal moment where I saw people of like different, genders and sexual orientations and sex shops. It was the first time that I went into a sex toy shop. And it was beautiful. It wasn't like a small gritty place. It was actually a big store. It kind of looked like a little Apple store in West Hollywood, and people were just shopping and everyone looked happy. And then I just remember like, oh wow, like, why are we all like hiding about these things, or talking? When we talk about these things, why are we whispering when it can just be so nice and liberated? But that was just like sort of a tickle. Then I was studying in my master's. I got my master's in interpersonal relationships, particularly looking at romantic relationships. And I remember reading an article that said that the most important thing in life, and it's a 70-year Harvard study, the most important thing in life is your relationships. It's what make life worthwhile and, the meaningful experience of being a human. So I just, oh wow, like, I wanted to study more of that. So I went to get my PhD. It took 4 years to get my PhD. And during my PhD, I learned that every single person will experience a sex issue at some point in their lives. Every single person. So if you're single, you may experience sexual anxiety, sexual dissatisfaction, fear of initiation, trauma from your past, sexual trauma, or if you're in a partnership as a couple, you may experience sexual dissatisfaction, sexual desire discrepancy, where one person wants more sex than the other. And just there's sexual communication breakdowns. There's so many potential issues that one can have. And because sex is so hard to talk about, it's actually the most universal problem in the world that everyone will experience. And once I learned that, I was like, oh my God, I want to be a part of a solution to such a big universal problem. And so once I finished my PhD, all of my research and my teaching at a university has always been about sexual communication.
That's incredible, and it's interesting that it's probably one of the most universal issues and maybe the least talked about, or when it is talked about, maybe not in the best ways. And then now you're filming on Celebs Go Dating.
Yeah.
That must be incredible, being able to share almost these common issues and common challenges with such a huge audience.
Yeah, I mean, with celebrities too, it's good to show people that everybody has sex-related issues, or that they have lack of knowledge, right? Lack of education. No one really have received proper sex education. Like, did you get proper comprehensive sex education in school?
My interest in women's health actually stems from my mum was one of the school nurses.
Oh.
And my mum used to do all the sex ed for all the schools around me. So I actually was very privileged that my mum was always I got pretty good sex ed because that was what my mum did basically and it was really interesting. One of my earliest memories is my mum comes to pick me up at a dance class, and one of my friends pointed to my mum going, oh my God, your mum taught me about boners, which was mortifying, like probably the most embarrassing moment. But she always made sure the boys and the girls were together because she wanted the boys to know about all the things going on with women's bodies and the girls to know all the things that were going on with boys' bodies. However, in my master's, they asked us, like, everyone, how many sex ed lessons you had. And I think people said 3, throughout 14 years of education, everyone said 3. So I've been lucky, but yeah, sex ed is awfully done, especially in this country.
Oh, I mean, in America, people didn't even have sex education. A lot of schools have 0 sex education, especially in certain parts of America that is based on like purity culture, and it's really religious. It's not even brought up because it's not appropriate to talk about at that age. Like, you're supposed to have sex after you get married, so why talk about it in like high school? So a lot of people that I teach in the university actually have never had any sort of education about human sexuality. Very blank. They have no knowledge whatsoever. So, for me, like, being on Celebs Go Dating, it's an opportunity to show millions and millions of viewers, like, here's how you can have these conversations. I remember vividly one season we had Helen Flanagan and her boyfriend on it. And I was talking to them about sexual compatibility and talking about like what is her sexual profile, which is my sex personality test, and then what is his sexual profile, and then talk about how even though they don't score similarly, how can you then have a conversation? What types of sexual activities can you engage in so that you can close that gap? Because they are sexually incompatible based on the scores. However, there are lots of things you can do to close that gap. So I was able to have that whole conversation about them as a couple, and her being a celebrity, but she's such a good sport. Like, she was able to have all this conversation, and she was so curious to learn more. It was really a lovely moment to show audience, like, this is how you have a conversation. I hope you do at home as well.
The community questions, so many of the questions are discrepancy in sex drive, or, those communication issues probably between people who love each other a lot, but there is just that block. So that's, what advice would you give to those people?
I would say, first off, you need to understand how you get horny.
Fab.
Yeah. When people think of the term sex drive, sexual desire, or sexual or sex drive, sexual desire, or libido.
Yeah.
They use it interchangeably.
Yeah.
Like they're the same thing, right? Often medical doctor would use the term libido. Sex drive has just been in our culture and pop culture forever. But the actual term that sexologists and sex therapists tend to use is sexual desire. And the reason why is because sex is important, but it's not necessarily a drive per se. Because a drive is when you don't get it, you die. Like eating, drinking water, and sleep. Like hunger is a real drive. Because when you don't eat for a long, long time, you can die of hunger and malnutrition. But you can't technically die from not having sex. So sex drive, it's okay to say. It's just not necessarily accurate. Now, sexual desire just means wanting to have sex, aka horny. Like you get horny wanting to have sex. Now, some people feel like they have a low, moderate, or high sexual desire, depending on how they respond to different cues. I want everybody to understand not everyone can just get horny like that. That particular type of sex drive or sexual desire is called spontaneous desire. And have you talked about this before?
I think it's interesting, the whole spontaneous desire thing, because I think that is like a very movie, what people see in the movies. Yeah.
So spontaneous sexual desire means that you can get horny really fast and you can get aroused really fast. So arousal is how your body and your brain is connected and how your body responds to your brain. So if you get wet or if you get hard, that's arousal, right? So for some people that have spontaneous desire, they have the wanting first and then the arousal comes soon after. So a lot of men have spontaneous desire where they might see their partner get naked and they get a hard-on, an erection, and then they want the sex, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very spontaneous thing to have. Some women have it too. Majority of them is men.
Yeah.
A lot of women have what is called responsive sexual desire, which is a completely different system of sex drive. It's not like you just immediately see your partner get a hard on and you're like, oh yeah, let's do it, right? Like you don't get like that. A response of someone with responsive sexual desire needs a lot of cues in order to respond to. So, you know, a respectful partner who, you know, maybe have been giving you foreplay all day, sort of like texting you during the day to tease or complimenting you all day or doing the chores or making sure the house is neat and cozy, lighting a candle, giving you a massage, right? Like getting you in the mood. You need all these cues to respond to. Also, women don't necessarily get a lot of visual responses, meaning they're not like visual sexual partner. So you see a hard on, you don't get wet necessarily. You need like a physical touch, a massage, something in your ears, like, you know, compliment me or say something hot, dirty talk.
That's what I find really interesting about, your DMs are probably, you know, the filth that turns up in my DMs, and it's often quite aggressive pictures of penises.
A lot.
And I just think, what do you think
It's
this has
like,
achieved?
these people
do you think what do you think you've achieved with this? Do you think that this was exactly what I wanted to see in my DMs at Monday at 8 a.m? It's awful. Women respond differently to different things.
Women are not sexually stimulated by visuals, typically. Like, yes, once the sex gets going, it's hot to see, you know, like veins in the arms or, you know, your partner like being really into it. Yes. But getting up to it, like we're not necessarily visual versus men. Men are visual, and that's why a lot of men love porn, because porn is visual. Women tend to like audio porn, audio erotica or reading erotica, because we love using imagination. We love reading about it and it's hot and there's a lot of tension in the words, or listening to erotica. That's why those erotica apps, they do so well with women. But yeah, we want everything else to be right. You know, no dirty dishes in the sink, chores are done, the room and the house smells good, then then I'm more relaxed and ready to be in the mood and responding to your touch to me. Then I can get horny and more aroused. So I think this part of sexual knowledge, everyone should know, because a lot of people come into my practice and go, well, my wife never wants sex. And I go, well, tell me about what happens the hour before sex. I don't know, maybe we have dinner, I'm like, okay, who cooked? She did. Okay, and then what else? Okay, have dinner, we, clean up, maybe we turn on a show, watch an hour of a show that we watch together, and then I'll start touching her and saying you're beautiful, but she will be, I'm tired, I'm just not feeling it, I'm not in the mood. She's like, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't be either. And is it like that every day? Well, not every day, but maybe 5 days a week. That's sort of how things go. I'm like, okay, number one, she's doing a lot of work. So there's literally no mental room to be horny. Number two, there's no real foreplay, isn't it? Just touching her and say, you're beautiful, 5 minutes before sex is not real foreplay.
It screams ulterior motive.
Exactly.
I feel. Yeah.
Women need a lot of affectionate touch that do not lead to sex. Lots of touch that just don't lead to sex, just to show love. So that's number two. And then number three, lack of novelty. If that's 5 days a week, she cooks dinner, we eat dinner, clean up, we watch TV, and then you want to enter her, there's no room for mystery, interest, excitement, novelty, nothing at all. And I'm not saying you need to be traveling to, Thailand in order to have novelty. You can have novelty in the house, but which I can talk about later. But that's the thing. If you live with this script, and you've been together, let's say 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, don't wonder why she doesn't want to have sex. It's that, those are the things that I just listed. It's not conducive for women to have high sexual desire in that context.
There were a lot of questions about long-term relationships, so we're definitely going to come on to them. But first of all, we've got our section, which is called Buy or Bye-Bye.
Ooh.
So I'm going to show you some products.
Okay.
And you are going to tell me whether you would buy these products or say bye-bye to them.
Okay.
So first we have sexy lingerie.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I love it. Great way to visually change it up.
Nice. That was an easy one. Next, aphrodisiac foods.
Bye-bye. I think it's a bit of a old wives' tale. You have to eat so much of something to have it. If you really want that reaction, I think supplements might be better because it's concentrated.
Interesting. I think we may have that a little bit later on. Vibrators, sex toys.
Bye, 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 bye. And I'm Oprah. I'm like, you get a sex toy. You get a sex toy. Sex toys are great for everybody, men and women.
What would you say to maybe someone who feels a little bit apprehensive, does not know where to start, maybe? If
you're too apprehensive to go into a shop, go online and buy the simplest one. Your first vibrator should be a clitoral vibrator, and the simplest one, only has 3 functions. And you won't be too apprehensive, because sometimes nowadays you've seen some vibrators, they're so advanced. There's so many buttons. I think it can be intimidating. So get a simple one. There are lots of them. Make sure that it's made of medical grade silicone, and it's waterproof. Maybe you want to use it in the shower, because maybe that's the only place you can get peace and quiet. And then make sure that it's from a reputable brand. So see the reviews.
Nice. Fab. Next, erotic literature or audiobooks.
Wow, we're syncing.
Yeah.
Buy, definitely buy. I love reading erotic literature. I'm reading one right now called Lights Out, and it's so hot and so taboo. I love it.
Nice. Do you have any shops, apps that you recommend at all?
I honestly just use Spotify.
Nice.
Yeah, like because I already have Spotify, so I just search for the ones that my friends recommend, and I just listen to it on Spotify. But if you want to also try, there's also like audio erotica apps that are called Quinn or Dipsy, and these are mainly tailored for women.
Nice. Couples question card games.
I love them. Bye. I think couples, long-term couples, need things that can bring in different sort of discussions, dialogue, and also need novelty. And this is a cheaper way to bring in novelty into the relationship.
Nice. Do you have any you recommend that springs to mind at all?
Oh, I mean, like I have some recommendations that's on Amazon that it's like on my Amazon storefront. It's cheap. It's like lots, like hundreds of questions in the card games. And Esther Perel has one as well. That one's a bit deeper questions. And there are themed ones, right? Like there are sex ones. There are ones that are like for fun, like funny, like fun nights. And then there's like a serious discussion one.
Nice. Arousal gels.
Buy, but you need to test it on your skin first because I have recommended it to some of my clients that ended up was allergic to them. So it depends. I would say if you're interested, buy the smallest tube. Try it on here or on here and see how it feels. Like try it on the most sensitive part of your body apart from your clitoris and see how it feels first, like a patch test. And if it's itchy or it feels burning, then don't use it. Unfortunately, it's just not for everyone.
Nice. Massage oils.
Love them. I love getting a massage, like a shoulder, back, ass massage, and foot massage, like really hot. I think oils or that sensual feeling can lead to better sex.
Nice. Intimate hygiene products.
Oh, it's both. So it's buy good high quality ones, bye to really poor quality ones. There's so many. There are ones that are really bad for you, like kills your pH. Also, never put soap inside your vagina. Like you don't need to literally put soap on your finger and put it in. That literally kills the culture inside your vagina and the pH. Outside's fine. If you want the light soap that's like pH balanced and created by gynecologists, that's cool. But there are just a lot of low quality products out there to say bye to.
Yeah. UTI prevention supplements.
Bye. I think a lot of people suffer UTI a lot, like regularly, especially if you're single, dating, and you're, mingling. Different penises have different like bacteria on them. Sometimes it's a bacteria that matches with yours and you're fine. And sometimes it's bacteria that doesn't match with yours, then you're in trouble. So sometimes you get yeast infection, you can get BV, you can get UTI. So I think supplements that can prevent them, they're good.
We have got so many community questions. One that I wanted to start with is it normal to only feel sexual desire once a month? What actually is normal libido?
I'm going to give you an unsatisfying answer because there's no normal libido. Take this example. If you identify as an asexual person has no sexual desire or very low sexual desire and just is not interested in sex in general, then if you can have like a desire once a year, and that would be normal because you're asexual. But if you don't identify as asexual and you have desire once a month, but you don't feel like it's a problem for your life or your relationship, then you're completely normal. However, if you feel like it's problematic, we need to investigate why. If your why is, I just want to have more opportunities to connect with my partner, that's a worthy why. But if your why is, well, everyone else have more sex than me, social comparison is not a good why.
Yeah.
So just investigate more deep down, like what is the actual problem. Now, again, you can have low libido, moderate libido, high libido, not a problem unless it's a problem in your relationship.
The next question I wanted to come on to, which I think will be really interesting from your perspective going to an all-girls school, was how do you think growing up in separated gender schools impacts sexuality and exposure to sex?
I don't think it's a good idea. Like I would never send my kids to schools that are like all girls or all boys because it's not natural. Like the world is mixed. And if you've gone to an all-girls school up until you finish high school, like you're 17, that's pretty crazy to not be exposed to boys or men at all, even though they're like half the people in the world. I don't think it's great for your development. And I'm not a child psychology, but I've read enough psychology research to know that it's just not normal to separate people that way. But how does it affect sexuality? I think when you're young and you're only surrounded by women, and this is my personal experience as well as, professional research, when you're young, you are experimenting. And you have much fewer blinders because you haven't been exposed to the full society yet. You're just in that little world. So when I was growing up, I thought I was a lesbian. I had 2 different girlfriends because, I had a girlfriend when I was 12 and I had a girlfriend when I was 13. I thought I was a lesbian because that's all we had. We were all dating other girls. But then once I went to high school in Finland and it was a co-ed school with boys and girls, I realized I like boys too. So then I'm like, ooh, am I straight or am I bi? I'm not sure. Do I still like girls? It causes a lot of confusion. So yeah, I think that's how it can impact sexuality. The other way around though, what the argument I've heard was that it protects people from having exposure to sex early in young age. Because if boys and girls are mixed and it's easy access to each other, then that encourages them to have sex earlier in younger age. However, my rebuttal to that would be, but if they have proper sex education and understand that they have the agency, they can make their own choices, they won't have sex too young. Because then they would understand that it's their personal choice, not to be forced to do something. That's my point.
Interesting. What do you think when you look at like today's landscape when it comes to sex, relationships, dating? Are there any things that really worry you a lot?
What worries me a lot is the division between men and women. Last year, I've seen a lot of articles and also podcasts of people talking about this division. How men just get more divided and lonely and angry and blame a lot of things on women. How a lot of women tend to give the narrative of they hate men now. Like, I hear young girls saying like, this year, like I'm all about like no men, I'm on a men fasting. And I'm not someone that will say, well, girls, you need men, because you don't. But at the same time, we do live in a society where division seems cooler than harmony. And I think that's wrong.
Social media makes things so much more polarizing. And I did a post about this recently where I think it was Stephen Bartlett he had Chris Williamson on talking about the birth rate. And then they had Dr. K as well talking about relationships with men and the incel culture. And I did a post about it because I felt like there is this just really, really dividing narrative. And I have the most incredible, like, partner in the entire world. Like, just such wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man. And it just makes me sad because I think it's just pushing people away. And do not get me wrong, I've had some awful experiences with men. And I think that some of these conversations just encourage a lot of those backwards ideas about women. But there are also some really, really, really lovely, forward-thinking men out there as well. So that's really interesting. You've noticed the divide as well.
We have the same concern. Yeah. And it's funny you brought up Stephen Bartlett and his podcast, because I do think that some of the discussions on there are problematic. I love his work and I admire the entrepreneurship, because as an entrepreneur as well, like, that path is hard, and how successful he gets is very inspiring. But at the same time, I think some of these discussions, especially when young men consume them and it's chopped up into small clips, you might not get the whole idea. It is scary for me to see incels saying that women are the problem, and that they shouldn't have rights because look at, in the past, women needed men because we couldn't even have a bank account. So divorce rate was slower. So often when I go on a podcast, people will ask me like, why do you think the divorce rate is so high? Why is it 50% divorce rate in the last, let's say 5 to 10 years of society? Is it because of feminism? And I said, if divorce was allowed and that women could still have their own bank account and job and thrive on their own back in the 50s, it would be the same rate.
Yeah.
Just because people weren't getting a divorce doesn't mean they were happy. A lot of people were not happy. They just couldn't get a divorce. That's why. Not that women now have rights and they're picky. We couldn't have done anything else. Our ancestors, female ancestors, had to be married to have land. And even then, it wasn't theirs. It was their husbands. To have land, to have bank account, to have a life. So yeah, of course, people weren't getting a divorce. Of course, there's more divorce now because we can. Because now we're choosing happiness and not being a miserable person in a relationship. So that question just kind of irks me because it's like, obviously not because women have rights.
You gave the perfect example earlier when you said about the man who's coming on to the woman who's trying to initiate sex in like half an hour, but then she's cooked dinner. Her nervous system can't relax because the dishes aren't done. And I think that a lot of the listeners, I'm sure, will resonate with this. Is I grew up personally seeing my mum, she had a master's degree, she worked full time, but she was still the person who cooked dinner every night. She was still the person who knew where to pick me up, like what after school clubs that I needed picking up from or what I was doing, my friends' names,
Women have to do everything.
The mental load is still placed on women. And then I think this generation of women, we're like, we don't want that. We want to be career women, but we don't want to carry that mental load. And actually, if we are expected to carry that mental load, that does take from the pot of energy that we have, the finite pot of energy that we have, and we don't have that energy for like sexual relationships.
Yeah, like you really have to audit the whole life
100%.
in order to point out what are the parts that can contribute to a better sex life. You can't just say it's a sex problem because sex is rarely ever about sex. It's never about just the physical act of sex. Sex is about everything else. Sex is about respect in the relationship. Sex is about emotional safety. Sex is about connection. Sex is about laughter. Have we been laughing? Have we had humor in the relationship? Playfulness. Sex is about responsibility. Sex is about effort. Sex is about newness and novelty. There's so many other things. Sex is never just about penetration. That's like the last thing it's about. And I think whenever I have a discussion with people, all I want people to understand is your sexual connection with yourself and your partner is extremely important because you would exude the energy of confidence, high self-esteem, satisfaction, and fulfillment. Once that part is also in check, right, intact. When you are struggling sexually by yourself and with your partner, there's no connection. We're so sexually disconnected. It affects every part of your life, trust me. You will feel irritated with your partner. Maybe you feel like it's out of the blue. Like, just whatever he does, I'm just so irritated and annoyed. I know why. You haven't been sexually connected forever. Like, there's many different negative ramifications in your life that comes from lack of sexual connection with yourself and your partner. And that's why it's so important. I like to say that orgasms give me the best ROI.
Nice.
Because it's true. Ever since I embraced my sexual empowerment, and it's only been 6 years since I got a divorce from my first husband. So I got married in my 20s thinking, oh my God, I'm getting old. I have to get married. So I literally married the first person that I matched on Tinder.
Oh my gosh.
My first husband. And he was brilliant on paper. On paper, he had everything, check box, check. Amazing man. And it still is, just not for me. So when I got a divorce, I was so ashamed because at that point I was already a professor. So I was able to teach about sex. I was talking the talk, wasn't walking the walk. We were sexually incompatible. We did not have a good we didn't have a good sex life together. And that then became a problem within me. So once we got a divorce, I was ashamed for a long time, but I also spent a whole year not only studying sex like what I used to, but doing all the practices, sexual meditation, tantric workshops, reading all the like personal sex books, reading about history of like female sexuality, doing like mindful masturbation and pleasure mapping. So basically doing, not just studying, doing all the sexual wellness activities and remedies. And I learned so much more than just reading research. I think that's why for me, whenever I talk to another, let's say, a sex researcher, I'm interested to know the knowledge, but at the same time, I want to know, do you have a good sex life? Because I like listening to people who don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And ever since I've been on that journey for the last 6 years, I've met the love of my life, my husband. I've now embraced who I actually am. So embracing ethical non-monogamy. So I have my husband in LA, and I have my boyfriend here in London. And I live this outwardly. Like everyone can see it and know how it's done, and all the communication and transparency and love within our relationship. I live authentically. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And I think it's really important for people to see.
Dating culture, a lot of it is, it's almost like a job interview. Like people go on these first dates and they pretend to be someone that they're not. So I think living authentically is just such a key take home that I think anyone can take away from this episode. What I'm extremely keen to dig into is the ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah.
That is so interesting to me. But before we get into that, I'm going to move on to one of our sections called Real or Not Real.
Cool.
I'm going to show you a social media clip and I just want to hear what you think about it. And then we will come on to the ethical non-monogamy.
When they did this big analysis of dating behavior, where they looked at 1.8 million online dating profiles across 20 different countries, if you earned more, so if you had higher income, you are 255% more likely to get an indication of interest on these applications. And so I would love to live in a world where that wasn't the case, but it seems that women are still choosing men that earn much more money. And that expectation of therefore being the provider is so inherent in reproductive success as a man.
Real.
Fine.
Yeah, I think it's real. I also help a lot of women, older women in their 40s and 50s date. And what I find is whether it's Gen X, millennials, or Gen Z, women are still looking for men that can somewhat provide, maybe not fully like in the past, but is not struggling financially. It's finances is still one of the major categories of evaluation, whether this is a good mate, a good partner, someone to be interested in long term. And, the research is right. And I think the personal experience that I have is with, helping women is right as well. I would say there is a difference, though, between desiring a partner who is financially stable and financially literate versus being a gold digger. Because I think there's a lot of incels or angry single men that think, women are just like, women are bitches and they're just gold diggers. I'm like, because gold diggers don't even like you. They're gold diggers are using you for money. They don't like you. They don't care for you. Women who are interested in you, but also want you to be financially stable, wants a viable long-term relationship. In this economy, it's not viable to have one income unless the one income is extremely high. In a normal relationship, you want dual income.
Yeah.
And you want your partner to be doing well in their own right. So I think when he said financially successful, I'm not sure how they define it. Like, does it have to be, over £1 million a year? Or is it just like someone that makes like over 100K a year, right? It depends on the definition of each person. But I honestly have never met a woman, whether it's through networking or my clients or my students, that say, I want a man that makes less than me.
I found it really interesting watching that clip. And there was another clip that he did where they were talking about like the biology or the psychology behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with maybe women look for more successful partners,
Mm-hmm.
but the psychology behind it, I disagreed with. They were kind of saying it was based on evolutionary and that sort of stuff, which might be the case. But I personally found when I was dating, whenever I dated people who were less successful than me, there was a much higher chance that they would feel emasculated by my success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when like that did change my perspective, not that I wanted to look for a man that was necessarily like more successful than me, but I just wanted someone who wasn't going to try and tear me down and see my successes as their failure. And often that came from men who had like their own stuff going on and their own successes, so I think it's interesting, which I don't often think is factored into the conversation. It always seems to be put on women, like women are looking for more financially successful men, not what are men's behavior that could be pushing women towards those people.
And I'm also sick of like these really big celebrities talking about everything based on evolutionary theory.
Yeah.
Like, come on. There's, behavioral reasons, cultural reasons, societal reasons, religious reasons. There's so many different other reasons now apart from evolutionary. Like, so many women happily choose to not have kids, right? If it's all evolution, wouldn't they be in shambles? Wouldn't they be crying at home every day, not going to work for not having kids? No. If it's just evolution, wouldn't they every day think about having babies and spreading their seeds and making sure they have offsprings? Not everything nowadays has to be from evolutionary perspective, because I think we've moved on so much from that now that a lot of things are actually, I think it's cultural perspective. So a lot of times if you want explanations, I think socio-cultural explanations make more sense nowadays in modern society. What you said is like, I don't want someone who is insecure and then they would dim my light for being successful and thriving financially. That makes sense. And that comes from socio-cultural and psychological perspective, right? Because culturally, quote unquote, a man needs to be successful to be a man, right? Culturally, cultural narrative states like you're not masculine unless you're a successful man, because that's the only men you see on TV that are successful, right? Like they wear the suits, they go to work, they make so much money, they're aggressive, they make they make all the decisions. So then it makes other men who choose a different life, maybe it's someone who's so passionate about music and is pursuing music rigorously and is so, in awe of all of that and so talented, but maybe not yet hit the critical mass of making a lot of money. That can also be a very masculine, successful man, just not the same financial outcomes. So yeah, I like what you said about how a lot of men that make less than you tend to be more insecure and therefore you don't date them because then you don't want them to dim your light. I would say similarly, I've dated people, I would say my main attraction point is typically physical. And I say this like, I have no shame. I say it among my friends. They're like, oh my God, Tara, you're so shallow. I'm like, I have no shame. My first thing is a physical point, because to me, it's like, if you take care of your body, it signals many other qualities that I like. So I'm first attracted to like physical characteristics. And then next would be intellectual ability. So that comes out through conversation. So money, I investigate that way later. So for me, it's those two first. And if you are so you're so interesting to talk to, you're funny, charismatic, and you have a great body, I would also already be interested. Then I would investigate the money thing way later. It's not as important because now I know that you're a secure man who is interesting and has a lot to offer. But at the same time, I've, like you, dated someone that was so annoyed. Like every time I was like, oh, I got a brand deal, he would be like, oh, another one, instead of celebrating me. I think there was a scene in Sex and the City. Have you ever watched that show?
Love Sex and the City.
Yeah, there was a Carrie was dating an author named Berger, and he was so jealous of her success that he would be annoyed every time she like gets a deal or something. So I think a lot of women are afraid of that.
Yeah. It's interesting you use the example of like maybe a musician who hasn't quite made it. And that's what I really, really, really hate about a lot of these conversations around what women find attractive, as if women are just this one homogenous lump of who all think the exact same.
Just us women.
Yeah, exactly. Like all women want is money, when actually, like, imagine if that musician who they hadn't had financial success, they just decided, do you know what? All women want money. So I'm going to get an office job. I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and I'm going to make money. And then they're going to go into a relationship, a sexual partnership, whatever, as a false version of themselves. Because also, you know, you saying like, I'm unashamedly attracted to people who are attractive. Like that's okay. That's your personal preference and you're owning that.
A lot of my friends make fun of me that I'm an old man. Because like there's a stereotype that like older men dating younger women and they only care about physical attractiveness. It's not true. I do care about physical attractiveness, but I also care about intellectual connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm not ashamed to say like, yeah, I'm attracted first physically to people. And that's an important part for me. Like I don't date anyone that don't have abs.
Nice.
Because to me, it signals other things, right? Like caring about your nutrition. So important to me. So it's just, like everyone is different, and you're right. Like you just saying, oh, all women this, all men that. That's just a flaw. Like that's generalization fallacy, right? Like, and not everyone is the same, obviously. And also like we're from different cultures. In my culture, it's like so different. For example, when I was getting a divorce, I was so ashamed. My mom was so ashamed. My mom didn't talk to me for 2 weeks because she was so ashamed that I'm getting a divorce. Versus, you know, all my friends in America, like they're all divorced. Like completely fine because it's an individualistic culture. You're not happy, well, pursue a divorce. It's okay, we understand. But in my culture, we don't understand. No one gets a divorce. None of my parents' generation, like the other parents, none of them get a divorce, even though like I know some of them are so miserable. So it's just culture like plays a lot of role. I think that's why I love anything that's happening. I also love investigating it from a cultural lens of like why people do certain things.
Yeah.
But you know, in terms of money and how that's related to sex. So there's research that shows when a relationship, a couple struggles with finances, it's correlated to sexual dissatisfaction in that relationship as well.
Really?
So yeah, like it means a lot to have a comfortable life. I'm not saying, you know, being a billionaire, just comfortable. Because then you have a lot more room, capacity, mental capacity, physical capacity, and time to engage in more fun sex, more novelty, more connection, right? So if you're always struggling with money, you're always in survival mode, and therefore no room to think about intimacy that way. So it's quite intertwined, isn't it? To talk about money and sex.
100%, because it's stress, you know, a huge factor.
Stress is the #1 libido killer.
Interesting. And where we're living in this world that is quite hustle culture, go, we are having the least amount of sex that we have ever had. Why do you think that is?
Gen Zs. So there's two things. Like one, I think also you have to look into that study and where the data was collected. And because that will affect the result. Because if you were collecting data, like let's say in Texas, in like a religious community, and you're surveying Gen Zs, like of course they're not having sex, they're not yet married. So I would, every time, you know, you hear statistics for all the listeners, I highly suggest you look into it first before you believe it, because sometimes where it's being surveyed will heavily impact the way you understand it. So from what I understand is that survey that a lot of people use now, it's not necessarily a very comprehensive sample. So I would say it's not like the truth for everyone. I teach Gen Z in university, and for the last 10 years, it's been Gen Z, right? So I survey my class every year, like, how many of you are sexually active? How many of you have partners? How many of you have sex like more than once a week? And there isn't really a problem there. So maybe LA kids have sex and people
Fine.
elsewhere don't. That's why I want to have a more nuanced conversation about it, just
Yeah.
because it just depends on where the subculture is. But from my understanding of the general sense of Gen Z as a whole generation having less sex is due to 3 different factors. One is money. Again, we're back to money. They're not making as much money, always stressed about money, and it's hard to have courtship, like taking people on a date or going out to have those experiences that lead to sex without money. So money is a big factor. Second is they're more choosy. So that research, and there's another research that found millennials had more sex. I'm a millennial. We had more sex because we weren't that choosy. Like we had more sex because we were just generally more promiscuous as a generation. We come from, our parents were baby boomers,
Yeah.
right? And as millennials, we saw baby boomers not having a great sex life and having very restrictive culture. For us, we were like all about like, yeah, fuck yeah, do everything, right? We're like, think of Paris Hilton. Like we're just that, the 90s, the
Yeah.
Y2K and getting drunk, having sex, doing drugs. Like it's just kind of like in our culture for that generation. So we had a lot more sex and more promiscuous. But Gen Z is more choosy because they get a lot more education online. They get a lot more motivational messages about like, no, like babe, like safe, like, save it for someone that cares or someone that respects you, or don't do it if it doesn't feel right for you. Like I think there's a lot more of those messages now. So Gen Zs are more like picky and just being more cautious, which understandable. I'm a millennial. I had a ton of sex. Like I can't say I recommend, but I learned from my mistakes. And then I think the third factor, this is interesting and we can find some correlations in it, is usually casual sex stems from intoxication. So people partying, drinking, then have sex. Promiscuity oftentimes stems from intoxication, so being drunk. A lot of Gen Zs don't drink. If you look at numbers, and these numbers don't lie because it's industry numbers, I think alcohol industry used to be about $30 billion. Don't quote me on this, but it's a huge change from like 30 billion to 5 billion. I mean, that's an insane amount of money. So Gen Zs are not drinking. And I think therefore having much less casual sex, because casual sex typically comes from being drunk. And if you're not drinking, you're sober, you're making decisions based on your sobriety, you probably don't have sex. So I think all of these combined as a societal explanation makes sense.
Yeah.
Gen Z is not having sex.
Really want to come on to your approach to ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah.
So if anyone's not heard of ethical non-monogamy, what is it? Like, how did you find yourself engaging in it?
So my answer would be controversial, but it's only because it's my experience. I find ethical non-monogamy is an orientation. Like sexual orientation, when you're gay, you're gay. When you're gay, you're not straight. Same as me. I'm E&M, ethical non-monogamy. I'm E&M. I'm not monogamous. I will never be monogamous. I'm just an E&M person. Just like a sexual orientation, this is a relationship orientation. Are you monogamous?
Yeah.
So that's your relationship orientation. You're monogamous. You can never be non-monogamous. It's the same thing, right? Like it's just an orientation is how my belief system works, how I'm wired in the brain. So that's my explanation of it. I've always been interested in it ever since I heard about it on like a podcast a long time ago. This is back when I was with my first husband. We had brief discussion about it and he was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, we were kind of doing like out of sight, out of mind. But it didn't work because we weren't even like in the right relationship from the first place. And we were also very sexually incompatible. So that was a bigger problem. And then when I was in my second marriage, when we first started dating, I immediately talked about non-monogamy being something that I'm interested in. He said, you know, I've never been in one, but I have also never been in a successful monogamy. So maybe I should explore that. So we were on the same page. So we have always been what we call monogamish. And I talk a lot about it in my book because in my book, it's all about like different sexual preferences, including like a monogamous relationship. So we've been monogamish for a long time, which means we attend erotic parties and we're allowed to be erotic with others, but we don't date other people. But that has changed. So last year, we had a big discussion. We've been together now 6 years. We had a big discussion about, you know, what we're interested in this life and what is, because, you know, we all grow and change, and sometimes in different ways, sometimes in similar ways. And my husband and I sat down and we talked about it. And I said, you know, I started like dating people in general for fun, casual, right? Just for fun. And he's like, yeah, cool with that. Like, I do that too. It's fine. But then I said, but I started to fall for someone. And the feeling I have for this person is stronger. The connection is stronger than other casual people I've been with. So this was a big, hard conversation. It took a while, a few days to like kind of hash it out, talk about the different parts of it. My husband also takes a lot to like process. After that discussion, he came to me and he's like, you know what? It's okay. Like, I accept it because I believe in the universe. I believe like what's supposed to be yours comes to you. So if this is the case, then let's work with it. And I'm so grateful to have such partner, someone that accepts me for who I am and is also open to exploring in his own way. He's like, you know what? Maybe I meet someone that I also will feel connected the same way I'm connected to you. So it's okay. So right now we're in an open marriage. So he's dating someone, I'm dating someone outside our marriage, but we're very much married, very much in love. And, you know, this is my life partner. Like, I'm just really lucky. And we're very, very strong. But we've gone through a lot together. We talk about everything. And yeah, this is our relationship. So my husband is an oil painter. So he has a big studio in LA and he loves being lost in his art. So he's always there. But, you know, I'm doing Celebs Go Dating. So I'm here a lot in London. So I have a boyfriend in London that I hang out with and he understands our situation. He knows my husband. So it's all one big happy family.
There was a community question also about navigating, maybe questioning your sexuality whilst in a relationship. And I think that could be translated quite well. So maybe someone who might be listening who is in a relationship questioning whether they are monogamous. How would you recommend they navigate that?
From what I've experienced personally, the signs that you may be non-monogamous are, number one, you have been monogamous your whole life and you were never satisfied. Like, it's just not necessarily who you were, but you were really trying to fit in to the box that the society gives you. Like, you only have one option. If you felt like that in the past, that's one sign. The second sign is if you are in a relationship and you still feel like you have the capacity to love another person, that's another sign. Like, you can love them both. It's like having two children. Do you love one more the other? Not really, right? If you have that capacity. Some people don't because their brain is wired for monogamy, one partner. So the third sign I would say is if you think about your husband or boyfriend going on a date and you're not breaking out in rash. You might break out in rash.
Yeah.
And you're not breaking out in rash or get like so worried and concerned or almost, you know, on a brink of crying or flustered, if you kind of think about it and you're like, it's not bad, or even like could be fun, or even like I'd be happy for him, then that's a big sign that you're non-monogamous. Because for me, when I hear that my husband's going on a date, I'm actually excited to hear like, who is she? What does she do? What does she look like? Like, did it go well? Did you enjoy it? What did you guys laugh about? And you know, even recently when I was back in LA, he brought someone home for all of us to have dinner together, and it was awkward for the first like 10 minutes, but it's actually really nice after, and we all hung out, we ate cake, and it was just lovely. So if you have this tendency like me, then you're most likely non-monogamous.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how would you recommend someone, so say if someone was questioning their sexuality whilst in a relationship, how would you recommend someone brings that conversation to the table?
It's very tricky. If you've been in a relationship that's monogamous and you want to change that, it's very hard, but obviously plausible. I think the very first thing is when people don't have knowledge about something, they get so anxious and upset. But once you have all the information, all the pieces in the picture, you calm down, you can step back and understand it a bit more. So I would say the very first thing is to tease their mind about the topic. Not that you want to do it, just tease their mind. For example, you can say, I was listening to Dr. Faye's podcast and her guest is in this like E&M relationship. Have you ever heard of it? And literally that's your inception. Like that's your, have you ever heard of it? Like start a dialogue with your partner, like have them start talking, and then you can reciprocate that conversation. But don't mention anything about you wanting to try it until like a third conversation. It's very sensitive. And if you feel like they are ready to discuss something like that, I would say like buy them a book about E&M or polyamory, because reading about it or listening to an audiobook helps a lot. There's a lot of different like mechanisms, and when they understand it, they'll be less apprehensive. And then lastly, it's always good to resort to professionals. So couples counseling, an E&M coach. There are a lot of E&M coaches out there. I'm one of them, but also my good friend Ali Eisenman, she's also like a great E&M coach. Having a third person help navigate opening up is a lot easier. Still hard, but a lot easier than like two people that have never done it trying to talk about it, because there's a lot of like boundaries, like how to do things. And if you've never been in one, you don't know. Like my husband and I literally have contracts, like typed contracts. We sign and date. And every time we want to change it, we have to add addendums. And each addendum has to be presented, talked about, and signed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
just it's communication, isn't it? It's just communication, communication. I love that. We had a lot of community questions about keeping the spark in long-term relationships. What would be your top tips for those?
I would say try erotic solutions. I talk about tons of erotic solutions in my book, but I'm gonna share like, let's say, 3 things that you can try. Erotic solutions are sexual activities that are non-penetrative. I'm a huge fan of sexually connecting with my partner without penetration, because I want to decenter penetration. Penetration is not everything, but penetration has been the definition of sex for like thousands of years, which is very annoying to me, because it's like there's so many ways to sexually connect with your partner without penetration. So the first erotic solution I want you to try is couples sexual meditation, where you get naked together, hold hands, and then listening to couples guided meditation for sex, and then just do what the guy tells you. You can go to my YouTube. There's a bunch of clips. It's all free. You can do one that's solo. You can do one that's for couples. And this can change it up in your relationship. People that like mindfulness activities, they already do, meditation, yoga, exercise, they will enjoy it. It's meditation, but it's for sex. So it focuses on sexual thoughts, sexual feelings in your bodies, and sensations in erogenous zone. So for example, the guy might say, now I want you to move on to the nipples. I want you to massage the nipples clockwise. take a deep breath, right? And you're together doing this together. That's the first one. The second one I want you to try is penis worshipping.
Okay.
And basically, and vice versa, a yoni massage or like pussy worshipping session. So penis worshipping and pussy worshipping is all about dedicating time and devotion to your partner without expecting things in return. Sex can become very transactional, where people forget that when you're in a romantic relationship, devotion is so sexy. Like, wouldn't you want your partner to be so devoted to you? Of course, everyone would. It's so sexy. You know, they'll get on their knees, take your clothes off for you, massage your whole body, and then massage your vulva, right? So I think a devotion session is great. And, you know, there's various details. If you Google it, it will come up. Google like yoni massage or lingam massage. I also talk about it in depth in the book. The third one that I want you to try is pleasure mapping. Have you tried that before?
No.
Okay, so pleasure mapping is education for partners, but it's also new and spicy, where you take turns, you both lay down. One person lay down naked. Your partner would then massage, touch, or lick different erogenous zones on your body to map which parts are the most arousing to you. Every body is different. So, you know, my partner can then like lick my ears. I can be like, oh my God, that's so like makes me aroused. That works. Okay, so that's a yes. And then come down to the neck. Okay, like the side is not that great. The back is really great, right? So he can kiss that. It feels good. Lick it, not so much. So don't lick it, just kiss it. Coming down to the nipples, like what type of sensation do you like? Do you like just a finger massaging it? Do you like grabbing the whole boob? Like all of that. Map the entire body. Then your partner will literally become a PhD of your body. It's hot. It's a gift that keeps on giving, because then long term they will know how to stimulate you. Highly recommend.
The single girlies, what top tips would you give them on navigating maybe single dating sexual relationships? Because I feel like that's a different territory of its own.
Have at least 2 different vibrators. First off, take care of yourself. Like, you know, you can give yourself sexual pleasure. You can give yourself, you know, serotonin, dopamine from masturbating. So the reason why I say 2 different types is you don't want to get used to just one sensation, because that's when you can't come with a partner. It's a big problem for a lot of women. I have a lot of women come to me like, Dr. Tara, I literally can only orgasm through my vibrator. I cannot orgasm with a partner. It's because your brain is so connected to one sensation, and that's your one vibrator. There's also a term for it called idiosyncratic masturbation. A lot of men get this. A lot of men who masturbate a lot, watching porn and using their grip, they can't orgasm with a partner, because they just get their brain neural pathways get used to just that one sensation. So for women, the female version would be having multiple vibrators so that you experience different sensations on the body. In terms of dating, I would say try like join clubs that's based on your interest. I have now recently, for the last 6 months, seen a lot of girls, a lot of women meet their partners at these places and not online. I know someone that met someone at like a networking event. Actually, they're now married. It's so crazy. They met at a networking event. One of my girlfriends met her boyfriend at the run club for Aloe Run Club in LA. Another friend joined a coffee club and also met a boyfriend there too. One of my female clients actually joined a book club for murder mystery.
Nice.
Met her boyfriend there. So I think there are now so many activities, especially if you live in a big city. Take advantage of it and join some of them. You may meet the love of your life. They're in person, organic meeting. There's nothing that can like, you know, nothing is the same, not as meeting organically. And I don't hate apps. I love apps because it's convenient. But this year, try something different.
This is something about the authenticity thing. If you're someone who does want to have sex on the first date, have sex on the first date.
Yeah, I would say it depends on which school of thought you subscribe to. The first one is sexual compatibility model. The second one is sexual restraint model. Sexual compatibility model states that you have sex early on in the relationship. It could be first date, second date, but like you have sex early in order to determine compatibility in the bedroom. And because that's an important factor in a long-term relationship. The second school of thought is sexual restraint model. It states that you should wait because you should wait to build emotional connection first before you have sex with someone. I subscribe to the first school because I had sex first date with my husband. And I also had sex first date with my other partner. So I'm on that school of thought because I think sexual compatibility is just so important to me. I need to know that first. Then I will spend more effort to build a relationship with someone. Versus I have lots of friends that need emotional connection to be so stable. So it might be like 1 month of dating, then sex can come. So just depends.
Yeah, and I think it's having that intuition in yourself and like knowing
Yeah.
what is right for you is so important.
The body is so intelligent.
There's a question that we've been asking all of our guests. So, Dr. Tara, what do you wish every woman knew by the time she was 25?
By 25, I hope you know that like sex isn't bad. Sex is great for you. I hope you know that masturbation is great for you. Daily masturbation is healthy. I hope you know that if you ever feel like being used for sex, you're probably right. Like listen to your body. I hope you know that reading more about sex can only bring more sexual confidence and sexual agency. So reading sex books and listening to more like credible sources talking about sex. I hope you know that like sex itself, once you master it or you become the master of it, that you feel comfortable about it, you can harness all that pleasure and sexual energy. It actually works for you. And it's great. Orgasms give me the best ROI.
That is such a great little tagline.
Yeah, I know. It's the best return on investment. It takes me 5 minutes to masturbate and then I'm in good mood all day. I can negotiate deals. I'm like, I just exude a much better energy. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much.
thank you.